Saludos a todos, muy buenas tardes, muy buenas noches, muy buenos días a todos. Saludos, damas y caballeros. En este precioso día nos reunimos para compartir este webinar especial y damos inicio con una presentación de palabras de bienvenida del director Ricardo DE SENA, presidente de la UPF para Centroamérica y el Caribe. ¿Corre el video?
Distinguished religious leaders, dear participants, peace, shalom, salam alaikum, namaste. Thank you so much for taking your precious time from your very, very busy schedules to attend this very important webinar, Building One Human Family Under God. The Universal Peace Federation, from its very inception, emphasized based on the initiative of the founding parents, Father and Mother Moon, the key role of our religious and spiritual leaders, because they are the ones that are sharing with all of us around the world the core principles and values that come from our loving Creator. They teach us about love, about forgiveness, about compassion, about unity, about service, about family, about community. That's why it's very important, and I'm very grateful to our regional coordinator, Reverend Remy Topier, that month after month prepares this webinar under the banner of one of our associations, the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development. So I thank you so much for being here. I encourage you, especially religious leaders, to really work side by side as brothers and sisters. The loving Creator called you, chose you, inspired you, and maybe it's a different path. And some of us call it God, some we call Elohim, Allah. We have different ways, and we have different holy text, sacred text, but the essence is the same. It's coming from the same Creator. Let's work together at least once a month. Let's get together and pray for our families, for our communities, for our cities, for our nations, for our precious region and the world. So one day we can live all as truly, truly one human family under God. Once again, thank you so much for taking your time today. I wish you a wonderful webinar and many blessings to you, your families, and your missions. Thank you very, very much.
Muy bien. Bueno, un aplauso a las palabras de introducción. Y a continuación, me complace invitar a esta palestra al Father Harold Imansha de la Iglesia Católica de San Pedro. Démosle la bienvenida con un aplauso.
Yes, good morning. When we began, my screen was appearing and
Okay, it's good. We can see your screen.
sorry.
It's good.
Am I back? Yes. Okay. Yes, I kept being addressed by another name, and let me just share again. Are you seeing my document?
Yes.
Not yet.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, but I am not seeing it myself. Okay, I have it. Yes, we had some really difficult moments because the name that was at the bottom of my screen was another name, and I didn't answer because that was not my name until it was realized that another name, another label was appearing. So when my correct name appeared, then I answered. And I thought, oh, in this family, I'm going to have two identities. But it's significant and very symbolic that for us to get together as a technological communicating family across Nicaragua, across the Caribbean, across Central America, South America, we have differences. We have different names, we have different cultures, but we are attempting to bring these cultures together as a family under God. So the difficulty of introductions was not disconnected from what we're trying to do, because we all come from families, and even our digital family across the miles is not perfect. If you can see my screen, you will see the term domestic church. And Pope St. John Paul II explained that in his letter to families that the domestic church is really the church, the family, the human family, because it is in the family that children learn their prayers. They learn who God is, but they learn all of that because of a mother and father. In our Central America, South American, even North American, and certainly the Caribbean, not all families will have mother and father, but all the same, they are families. The domestic church then is believing that how you live your faith in your councils, in today's conference, in families, in parishes, and community has a ripple effect that changes the world. And we are praying in our gathering today via Zoom that that ripple effect will become peace in the world. Mother Teresa says that world war and world peace begin in the home, because we teach our children not to fight, not to battle, pelear in Espanol. God's original design for the family is a foundational concept found in the Bible. Let's explore what Scripture reveals about this design from the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verses 18 to 21. I find that whenever I'm doing a wedding, there are many wives-to-be who do not like this particular reference. Wives are called to submit to their husbands, recognizing that this submission is fitting in the Lord. Submission is a very difficult word there. Husbands, their role is to love their wives and avoid bitterness towards them. So we see that when wives and husbands collaborate, the word submit is really standing at his side in collaborating with him. His role to lead as a husband and as a father. So the collaboration of the two will not have as much conflict with the word submitting to. Children are instructed to obey their parents in everything, as this pleases the Lord. And fathers, again, should not provoke their children, preventing them from becoming disheartened. Let me go rather quickly to a few notes from Pope John Paul II's letter to families. The situation in which the family finds itself presents positive and negative aspects. The first are a sign of the salvation of Christ operating in the world. The second is a sign of the refusal that man gives to the love of God. This particular document that I've quoted from, I have already sent, and so it can be made available later. So I won't give you all of it. At the root of negative phenomena, there frequently lies a corruption of the idea and the experience of freedom, conceived not as a capacity for realizing the truth of God's plan for marriage and the family, but as an autonomous power of self-affirmation, often against others, for one's own selfish well-being. Worthy of our attention is also the fact that in the countries of the so-called third world families often lack both the means necessary for survival, such as food, work, housing, and medicine, and the most elementary freedoms. In the richer countries, on the contrary, excessive prosperity and the consumer mentality paradoxically joined to a certain anguish and uncertainty about the future, deprive married couples of the generosity and courage needed for raising up new human life, and even to unmarried couples or single parent families. Thus, life is often perceived not as a blessing, but as a danger from which to defend oneself. The historical situation in which the family lives therefore appears as an interplay of light and darkness. So I will lead you just to another part of that. This shows that history is not simply a fixed progression towards what is better, but rather an event of freedom, and even a struggle between freedoms that are in mutual conflict. That is, according to the well-known expression of St. Augustine, a conflict between two loves, the love of God to the point of disregarding self, and the love of self to the point of disregarding God. It follows that only an education for love rooted in faith can lead to the capacity of interpreting the signs of the times, which are the historical expression of this twofold love of God and self within the family of origin. And I'd like to sing from a well-known hymn known as Bind Us Together. We are the family of God. We are the promise divine. We are God's chosen desire. We are the glorious new wine. So bind us together, Lord, bind us together with cords that cannot be broken. Bind us together, Lord, bind us together, Lord, bind us together with love. I have not addressed all of the concerns, but I hope I have touched on some that can lead to further discussion. Thank you. Gracias a Dios y gracias a todos.
Nelson. Moderator Nelson.
Nelson maybe have problem with his, I don't know, his internet.
Oh, I see.
And you continue, please. Nelson is here.
Sure. Oh, he's coming back.
Yes.
No? Okay, Nelson.
Nelson, active su micrófono, por favor.
Listo. Bueno, vamos a continuar. Vamos a presentar al reverendo Guillermo Sordo. Él es el líder nacional de la Asamblea de Dios aquí en Managua, Nicaragua. Entonces, tengo el honor de invitarlo, un amigo, un hermano en Cristo.
Gracias, Nelson. Gracias. Gracias a todos. Quiero agradecer a Dios en primer lugar realmente por esta linda oportunidad que me brinda a la UPF, a todo el cuerpo directivo y ejecutivo de la UPF, los panelistas presentes y todos aquellos que puedan estar unidos con nosotros a través de esta transmisión. Realmente felicitando a la UPF, trayendo este tema en la situación y crisis que nos encontramos en este mundo. 24 años tenemos ya del inicio de un nuevo milenio, un nuevo siglo, y el mundo en sí está tratando de querer mejorar las cosas, pero lo que vemos es que cada día la maldad se ha incrementado mayormente. El ser humano nos hemos convertido en enemigos de Dios, porque si Dios tuvo el esmero de crear este planeta Tierra, donde de este sistema solar de 7 planetas y 2 planetoides, el único que está comprobado científicamente en todo lo que se ha hecho de tanta investigación, el único planeta donde hay seres vivientes es la Tierra. El esmero que Dios tuvo de crear esta Tierra, el orden que estableció del desorden que había, del caos que se había dado, Dios se esmeró en 7 días, 6 días de su creación y el 7º de reposo. Dios puso un orden a todo lo que en esta tierra, creó todas las cosas y por último dejó la creación de la familia. En ese Edén, crear un huerto y dándole Dios la autoridad a la primer familia de hacer un solo huerto en toda esta tierra. Lamentamos nosotros que el ser humano nos hemos convertido en enemigos de Dios. Le hemos dado la espalda a Dios y hemos sido los destructores de lo que Dios constituyó desde el principio. Después que hizo el Edén y el huerto, formó la familia para que disfrutara de las bendiciones de la creación que Él hizo a nuestro favor. La desobediencia ha sido tan grande en el ser humano de darle la espalda a Dios y no querer saber nada de nuestro Dios. El desorden que hemos venido creando. Lamentamos mucho todo lo que se está viviendo en estos tiempos en las diferentes naciones, la injusticia, la maldad y lo peor en que ha venido cayendo esta humanidad es el menosprecio a lo que Dios constituyó. Vemos cómo en las diferentes naciones existen matrimonios y analizando un poco y estudiando un poco, vemos que los Estados Unidos y Rusia son los países, así como en Estados Unidos predomina el evangelio, en Rusia es escaso, pero ¿qué podemos encontrar? Que estos países son los que tienen la mayor cantidad de divorcios, un menosprecio al pacto que se hace dentro del matrimonio. Se dice que del 2012 al 2020, de 100 matrimonios que se efectúan, el 35% se vuelven en divorcios. Vemos la gran cantidad de hogares disfuncionales que existen, niños abandonados por sus padres, sumando a esto a lo que los algunos organismos internacionales, gobernantes de muchas naciones, han venido promoviendo en lo que es el matrimonio en una aberración delante de nuestro Dios en permitir matrimonio del mismo sexo. Esto sabemos que es una blasfema delante de nuestro Dios y es decirle a Dios no es lo que vos constituiste, sino lo que nosotros debemos de hacer. Y lo peor que existe, que hay algunas naciones que han permitido en la aprobación de sus leyes adoptar niños en matrimonios del mismo sexo. ¿Qué se puede esperar en este mundo si se ha despreciado lo que Dios ha creado a favor nuestro? ¿Qué le espera a este planeta Tierra? ¿Qué espera de los ciudadanos del futuro? ¿Qué podemos encontrar nosotros? Una destrucción total que se ha venido destruyendo este planeta, porque si se ha tocado la familia, que es lo esencial para dar una buena formación, y se ha venido destruyendo por las mismas prácticas que el ser humano ha venido teniendo. ¿Qué debemos de hacer para buscar como lo que se da como título construyendo una familia en Dios? Debemos de tener como punto número 1 el buscar a Dios y promover el conocimiento de la palabra de Dios y que nuestros cuerpos, alma, espíritu, entregarlo verdaderamente a nuestro Creador. Número 2, ajustar los valores y principios de la palabra de Dios. 3, honrar el matrimonio aprobado y establecido como familia, hombre y mujer. 4, el respeto al nombre que Dios le dio familia, tomando en cuenta lo que dice la Biblia, que ya no son dos, sino un solo cuerpo. 5, saber dar una buena educación a los hijos conforme a los valores espirituales y morales que Dios nos enseña en su santa palabra. Lamentamos mucho todos los sucesos que se están dando ahora mismo y dentro de lo que es el matrimonio, cómo se ha violentado el orden que Dios ha establecido. Yo quiero felicitar a la UPF y a otros organismos que se preocupan por buscar cómo haya un orden y una restauración de las familias, porque eso es lo que está destruyendo este planeta. Vemos cómo a los niños los están usando para el tráfico de órganos, para el tráfico de droga, para el crimen organizado, porque ha sido menospreciado el orden que Dios estableció en la familia. Bendigo a Dios, bendigo el cuerpo directivo y ejecutivo de la UPF y bendigo a todos aquellos organismos internacionales que hacen campaña de preparación y capacitación para la unidad de la familia y combatir el desorden que se ha venido dando dentro de esta tierra. Una vez más agradezco a todos por esta linda oportunidad que se me ha brindado y hablar sobre un tema tan importante que estamos necesitándolo en este planeta Tierra. Dios bendiga a todo este equipo, al doctor Jan, a la señora doctora Moon, y gracias doy a Dios y a ustedes por esta linda oportunidad que se me ha brindado. Muchas gracias y que Dios los bendiga a todos. Gracias, Nelson.
Muchas gracias, reverendo Guillermo Sordo. Bien, continuamos. Vamos a presentar al doctor Martin Shea, filósofo, teólogo y sacerdote para todas las religiones. Con ustedes, el doctor Martin Shea.
Greetings, everybody. My presentation is called Incarnation and Ubuntu, God, World, and Self Today. Who moves the screen?
I can move, yeah.
Yeah. What is incarnation? It is the harmony of one love in the totality of reality. Now, it's so interesting. I'm calling from Jamaica, and you know there's a big movie out about Bob Marley called One Love. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. He does it from a musical perspective and so on. But it's about the fact that incarnation is the one love of the totality of reality. Now, what is Ubuntu? Ubuntu is a moral social philosophy that states that I am because we are. We are because I am. It's the essence of what humanity is. Next. Please move the next screen, please. Incarnation is a unity of all reality. Western philosophy has separated polar entities. It has separated matter from spirit, divine from human, transcendence from immanence, subject from object, and so on. Next. Next, please. Incarnation breaks down the dualisms. Now, people talk more pastorally about things. I'm talking philosophically. But incarnation breaks down this dualism and offers philosophical arguments that support the understanding that all of reality, we talk about it, but do we understand how it works? It is unified whole. That the dualism of Western philosophy is an illusion when we talk about the separate. When people talk about, oh, humans are spiritual beings in a physical body, that upsets me now because we are, in fact, incarnate beings. We can't talk about the separation anymore. Okay? We can't. The dualism of Western philosophy is an illusion, and that God and nature with the self comprise a single harmony of an incarnate love. Next. Incarnation is dialectical. What does that mean? It means it's a process of everything is dialectical. There's a thesis, a statement. Humanity is one. There's an antithesis. Humanity is many. And then there is a synthesis. Humanity is a unity in diversity. And if we need a theological description of the dialectical method, it would be the Trinity. The Trinity is a dialectical example where you have God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit, or the incarnate self, the spiritual self, the transcendent self. Next. Within incarnation and Ubuntu, a person is able to recognize that I am because we are, and that the environment, animals, all of nature are ultimately one. One love, one heart. All are we are one, as we say in Jamaica. Okay? The human person is not just an individual, not just an ego. A person is a subject and an object. I cannot be who I am without the objective world out there. All non-human animals are a subject with an object. All persons, everything is a person, a subject of a being. Next. All plants, all beings, organic and inorganic, are a subject and an object. If a very interesting thing, go on YouTube and look at Dr. Masaru Emoto's research, where he indicates that water, consciousness, and intent all are connected. He froze water that was done with different perspectives, and he froze it, and it shows how different each expression is. Everything is connected. How our consciousness directly affects the universe. Now, as we are looking at this, we are doing an ethics. When we're looking at humanity in the world with God, we are doing an ethics. And ethics is both subjective, meaning I'm doing it, but it's objective, meaning that whatever I do has an objective reality to it. Ethics is intrinsic. It's good or bad in itself, but it also has value in other ways, an instrumental value, an external value. In incarnation and Ubuntu ethics, the human person is one with the entirety of the world and God, seeking harmony. The one love, the one heart of the totality of reality. Next. Next.
Yeah, this one do not read.
What are incarnation? Incarnation is a metaphysics. Now, if you don't know philosophy, metaphysics is a study of being, the existence of being. Behind the social aspect of Ubuntu, Ubuntu is talking about the metaphysics of it in a social setting. Okay? Incarnation is referring to the fact that all of reality is dialectical, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and therefore comprised of opposing positions. Okay? And it's unified. Incarnation is the unifying element of God as transcendent in the material natural world. Next. Incarnation is stating that all reality is a dialectical unity of reality. There is no longer a separation of the material world and the ideal world, the spiritual world. There's no longer a separation of the subject with the object. There's no longer a separation between the divine, i.e. God, and humans, the self and nature. It's all one incarnation. Next. The important phrase in understanding this whole dialectical method in incarnation and Ubuntu is the phrase distinct but not separate. We can talk about God as God. We can talk about nature as concepts, but they're in reality, they're never separate. Concepts as matter and spirit, subject and object, intrinsic and instrumental are distinct in their concepts, but in actuality are never separate in reality. Because why? All are we are one. All is one. Next. Ubuntu is an African term, which roughly translates to human kindness. It is an idea from the South African region that literally means humanness. Ubuntu is our total humanness. Next. The essence of African morality is often expressed in these two terms. I am because we are because I am, and a person is a person through other persons. Next. The main idea of Ubuntu is that only we can become a real or authentic virtuous person is through our relationships with others. We are mutually interdependent. What I do affects others and vice versa. Next. Because of this, we need to consider others as much as we consider ourselves. The family analogy is often used to explain this. Just as the members of a family realize that they depend on each other, and one love to my family, and therefore look after each other and seek the good of the family, so we should do so in other relationships, just like we're one big human family. Next. Ubuntu speaks to the very essence of being human. It means my humanity is caught up in, is inextricably bound up in. Theirs, we belong in a bundle of life, a harmony, a friendliness, community are great goods. Social harmony is for us, the greatest good. Anything that subverts or undermines this sought after good is to be avoided like a plague. Bishop Tutu states back in 1999. Next. Ubuntu requires two things: identity and solidarity. Individuals conceive of themselves as part of a we, not just an I. We consider ourselves to be in this business of life together with others, solidarity. As it goes with others, so it goes with me. Next. Any philosophy, any theology, and any epistemology of the divine in the world must first begin with an anthropology, a study of the human person. For it is the human person who is the philosopher. It is the human person who is the theologian, the priest, the believer, the searcher. Next. Within anthropology, the subject point is the starting point is the subject, the self of that human person, the agent in the search, the active condition in which the world and God is known. All understanding of the world and God is filtered through the self. We cannot look at anything except through our own eyes, but our eyes are not alone, individual. Next. There is no other way of observing the world and God except through the self. The world and divinity, God, has no meaning outside of me who's observing. In order to understand this philosophy, it is paramount to have an understanding of the self. Next. The self becomes aware of nature, which is the actual and only means in which the self may have a glimpse of the mystery of God and the world. Next. The self as a person. Okay, we're not just an ego. Since the modern era, the dominant philosophy of the self has been individualistic, according to which each is basically out for him or herself. And so self-interest becomes the motive power of each person. Individualism has led to an understanding of social life as a struggle among rivals, a survival of the fittest, as we know the phrase. Next. The self is not an ego by itself. The self is a person. You know how we talk in the Trinity? 3 persons in one. There's a reason why we use the term person rather than individuals or entities. The self is a person. I am a self with others and the world. The Father is only the Father with the Son. The Son is only the Son with the Spirit, and so forth. Next. Within individualism's antisocial elements, its seeming unlimited selfishness, its lack of genuine solidarity, and its exploitation of the less powerful, one must find a remedy in another vision of the human person and the self, and that is personalism. Next. Personalism suggests a philosophy centered on the human person. It distinguishes itself from the individualism because its relationship with what is called the common good. We always refer about the common good. Well, here's the definition that I understand with the common good. It is the sum total, meaning everything of all those conditions, all those elements of our life, of social living, the economic, the political, the cultural, which makes it possible for women and men to readily and fully to achieve the perfection of their humanity. So the common good is all the elements that enable a human person to be what they are be. And just look at the world today. The common good is like not even in existence in so many places in the world. Next, please. The self is of incarnation as a person in the world, a person with and in community, a person who necessarily considers the common good in all of his or her actions. And this is basically what Ubuntu is. We can talk about the metaphysics of incarnation, but the social aspect is what Ubuntu is. Next. As we close, we have discovered that seeming opposing elements, for example, matter, spirit, human, divine, are actually dialectically one. Too often, humanity wants to make the world and God into objects and then describe them. Epistemology, which is how we know things, inevitably involves metaphysics, what things are. When one seeks to know something, that something is an objective reality. Next. The objective reality is explained through the understanding of metaphysics. Epistemology is only one side of any philosophical theology. Incarnation is like a coin with two sides, positive in the head and the side. Metaphysics is needed so as to describe the world and the being of God, which humans seek to know. And that's the epistemology. Next. Incarnation is not a philosophy or theology of the mind, nor is it a philosophy of the body. Either side alone is too lopsided. Incarnation can be best described as the philosophy theology of the heart. The heart is a synthesis of body, mind, and spirit. Yes. Next. Body and spirit are the conditions of the possibilities, the only way for the heart to love, for the heart to know and to feel the harmony of love, which is the entirety of the universe, God, and self. Next. So the self is a particular individual being. God needs these individual beings, that is humans, as conscious, whole, incarnational entities that are present within the diversity of nature, that is the world, expressing themselves as the infinite particularities of the one love, one heart, which is the totality of reality. Next. We must always remember that incarnation reveals a new dialectical relationship between human beings and God. God needs humans to be God. Humans need God to be human. Next. So do good and avoid evil, friends. The harmony of one love, one heart, and the totality of reality. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, doctor Martí. Excelente. Vamos a continuar entonces la presentación. Bishop Joseph Atterley de la Asamblea Vida Mejor de Barbados. Lo recibimos con un fuerte aplauso.
Thank you so very much for the introduction and for the privilege of participating in the webinar. I'm speaking on the theme, Building One Human Family Under God. I want to begin by suggesting that functional harmony, peaceful coexistence, and the embrace of notions of singularity or community in the context of diversity, in the context of unitary brotherhood of humanity under God, is not merely altruistic thinking. It is desirable, though it is elusive in too many instances. The simple word for this type of harmonious reality among the diverse elements of humankind at various levels of community, whether familial, parochial, national, or global, is peace. We cite the pursuit of peace in the context outlined and the dynamics enumerated below as a very necessary component in the lofty exercise of building one human family under God. Peace is the achievement of the good construction of community with the obvious element of diversity. It is a creation of a construct within the context of which an adopted governance order is established. Necessary systems conducive to productive life endeavor and expressions are effected, and a desirable level of functional harmony is achieved. The foregoing definition borrows from the creative construction of the Edenic model described in the Genesis account. Here, we do see an environment fashioned with functional systems designed to serve the needs of the principal occupants, who themselves, with a governed order, are purposed for harmonious and productive function. But an accurate revisit to the Genesis record would reveal the presence of dynamics which hold the potential for dysfunction, disharmony, deviation from the order of governance to a determined path of self-interest, a diversion from a course of intended productive achievement and fulfillment to a destiny potentially mired in destruction. The pursuit and attainment of a more sustained and enduring peace must therefore take cognizance of the above referenced dynamics. There must be recognition of the potential of those dynamics which constitute counters to meaningful and lasting peace in communities and among divergent groups. Prominently among those dynamics, including inducing dysfunction in systems, disharmony among principles, and disunity around productive purpose, are 6 or 7 elements. And I like to list them very quickly. One is the deprivation of resources available to some groups, and that's so in a context of environmental systems which are skewed to serve the narrow interests of vested elements. A second is the denial of rights, sometimes even basic rights, to elements and individuals and groups with divergent views or diverse characterization. A third is the denuding of spaces which are the heritage of or heartland of targeted groups and of varying communities. Fourth, the dereliction of duty for varied reasons by those within the systems whose role and responsibility it is to ensure equity and fairness. A fifth element, the double-dealing standards and practices adopted by those who occupy positions of prominence and influence. The deflection of blame from themselves for failures in the system by those who are driven by motives of self-interest or protection, or motives concerned with their allied interests, often unable to counter or disprove that perception. That's the sixth element. The seventh is the destruction of platforms with potential to gender peace and harmony, productivity, progress, and prosperity, if such platforms signal erosion of or position of privilege for the entrenched interest groups. Conversely, however, among those elements critical to the construction of platforms for harmony and peace, there are some dynamics which are in themselves very positive and ought to be stimulated and certainly pursued and practiced. I list 6 or 7 of those. One is community construction. This starts with a recognition of the intrinsic worth inherent in and the value attaching to each individual, irrespective of origins, ethnic identity, color, class, or creed. And even though there may be particulars of behavior manifestation which are diverse, nevertheless, there must be mutual respect for the individuality of each and a recognition that there's a positive role for each to play in the pursuit of that construct which we call community. So that's community construction. Second is capacity building. You're not going to have harmony and any sense of unity or brotherhood among humanity and its various elements and communities unless there's capacity building. Capacity building is critical as well to the sustained well-being of community. Such well-being is elusive without the presence and practice of peace and harmony. It is the enhanced capacity of a community which genders increased productivity. And that increased productivity in turn lends itself to growth and development of communities. The individual sense of well-being so induced consequentially reduces tensions and stresses which otherwise would derail any attempts at peaceful and harmonious community building. 3, conflict resolution systems to reduce and manage community construction are vitally necessary. The dynamic of conflict historically has been and is still and will continue to be a trigger for change in the process of community construction. Such conflict with positive outcomes can lead to sturdier platforms of peace and harmony and can be bridge builders to further progress in an improving tranquil context or context of tranquility. However, that reality coexists with the potential for turbulence in the absence of weaknesses related to or with the inadequacies associated with those conflict reducing and conflict management systems. Consolidation of ownership in the hands of narrow interests is a significant ground and basis for conflict, and the prevention of peaceful coexistence and a sense of community and brotherhood and family in the exercise of community construction. democratization of ownership opportunity in relation to property or capital or resources, therefore, is an indispensable requirement for towards communal aspiration and achievement. A recipe must be found for making it more so a reality, again, in the interest of community building, community construction, and peaceful coexistence. 5, cohesion within the community, whether with reference to internal community dynamics or intra-community relations, must borrow much from an agreed and ordered system of good governance, which respects rights, responds to needs and aspirations, which recognizes the virtue and value attaching to all persons and all communities, and that realizes that the system or order must be responsive to change in the environment around it. Of course, the system must also make itself subject to change. In such a system, governors must admit of a shared identity with the governed and vice versa. Of course, shared identity in community must not only be experienced on the vertical sphere from governed to govern, from governors to govern or governed to governors, but also in the horizontal context from one to another. Again, if this is not the reality, community construction, harmony, and peace become elusive dreams. Clear channels of communication are prerequisite to good and useful dialogue, of course. Such dialogue should be without ambiguity, and the principal voices engaged in those dialogues must be above any semblance or even charge of partisan bias. 7, there must always be a charter or covenant of justice, and these must be unbiased expressions and must be easily accessible to all, notwithstanding their material means or any particular incapacity or limitation. Justice remains the inalienable and undeniable right of all members of any properly functioning community construct. It must be perceived as well as the practiced reality. Charters, therefore, for covenants for justice must be part of the reality which people experience in an attempt to build community constructs or family constructs. Let me conclude by saying, in brief, the building of one human family under God necessitates both the deliberate, focused, and inescapable enterprise of both deconstruction and construction. The diversity within the community of humankind portends a lot of the time dysfunction. However, that process of community construction, as examined here in this brief presentation, creates the probability of negation and nullification of any negative dynamics that I might have cited, and it facilitates the desirable outcomes associated with positive constructs, which also I have tried to enumerate. So I support very strongly the view that we should be motivated and driven by a sense of family and community and oneness and brotherhood. But we've got to recognize the serious, significant dynamics that work against that. And we've got to address that by constructing through some of the elements that I've identified, the counter, build platforms for peace, harmony, which will lead to productivity and progress and build that sense of community. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, muchas gracias. Muy bien. Vamos a dar un encerramiento en este momento con el líder continental, su región 4 de Centroamérica y el Caribe, el reverendo Remy Tupier, presidente nacional de Santa Lucía, con ustedes para dar unas palabras de encerramiento. Recibamos con un fuerte aplauso.
I thank you very much, and I'm very humbled when I hear all the various presentations of our 4 panelists. I really want to thank all of you. All these 4 panelists are outstanding. They gave us a lot of content, but very sorry, in 1 hour, it's almost impossible to absorb. But this is recorded, so when the replay is ready, you can have the recording and always come back on it. Thank you, Father Imam Shah, for really remembering that even if we are from different cultures, somehow we have to come and work together. And we especially introducing the idea of domestic church that John Paul II was promoting. Domestic church is a wonderful idea. It means the home should become church, the place where we practice God's love, and the place where peace starts, should start at home. Reverend Guillermo Osorno also insisted, showed us one of the central problems of our society, the problem of marriage, few marriage, and many divorce and more divorces. So a lot of trouble, broken families, and we need to make effort to somehow revitalize families, to revalue, to show the value of the family and the marriage. And there is a lot of education for that to be done. Then Dr. Shade shared his heart and passion with the philosophy of Ubuntu. And I wrote down, I am because we are. And his effort to show that even if we are distinct, we are not separate, we are still one. I think they would need a lot of time to appreciate all what he said. And also, I think, it externally looks like every person is different, but in reality, I'm sure if we would take the time to share our hearts and our thinking, we would realize that we are not so far from each other. And finally, I want to thank also Bishop Asserly for your also very scholarly presentation. And so showing us that peace is the achievement of a good construction of a society. And so you first presented 7 points, like we would say, of what doesn't go well and need to be deconstructed. And then 7 points of what it's possible to do. This is a good construction, and I think that will be a very good content for a political manifesto. Maybe you used, because I know that you are also the leader of a party in Barbados, so I somehow have the mind, maybe you use that too. So thank you very much, wonderful panelists. Sorry for the trouble we had there, and we started also a little bit late, so sorry. But really, we appreciate your effort, your contribution. If you have some Universal Peace Federation chapter in your country, please continue to work with those chapters. And if you have friends also that you would like to recommend for such webinars, please feel free to do it. We'll be very happy to have them also share their view on the. We want to keep this topic one human family under God, like building one human family under God. Somehow it looks like it's a good topic. And so we are going to keep it for a series, several sessions like that. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
God bless you. Muchas gracias a todos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Hasta la próxima. Espero que nos podamos encontrar nuevamente con estas excelentes exposiciones. Un abrazo para todos.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.